Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Great to be back with you.
Yeah, good to be here.
Today, we're jumping into a source you shared, Chapter 2 of Outlive. It's called Medicine 3.0.
And that title really says it all, doesn't it? It's not just an update. It's framed as a whole new way of thinking.
Exactly. It challenges, the traditional view of medicine, especially when we talk about the kinds of health issues most people face now.
Right, the chronic stuff. This chapter really sets out a new framework, a different approach to long-term health.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. Unpack the author's own journey that led him here, get the historical context, understand the difference between Medicine 2.0 and this proposed Medicine 3.0.
And most importantly, see why this perspective matters for your health looking ahead.
And he really starts with a personal story from his training days, which sounds, well, pretty intense.
Oh, the gentamicin incident. Yeah, he was a resident in the ICU.
Intensive care, right?
Yeah.
And there's this patient, really sick with sepsis, needs this powerful antibiotic, gentamicin.
And that drug, it's tricky. You need just the right amount. Too little, it doesn't work. Too much, well, that can cause serious harm, like kidney damage, hearing loss.
So timing and dose are absolutely critical.
Yeah.
The author, he has this math background, right? So he calculates the perfect time to the next dose, 4:30 a.m.
Down to the minute, he checks the levels, everything lines up, time for the dose.
But his boss, the ICU fellow, just says, nope, wait till 7 a.m. The nursing shift change.
Which is, what, 2.5 hours later? For a patient with a raging infection.
It seems crazy, right?
Yeah.
The author sees the data, sees the risk of waiting, and, well, he discreetly tells the nurse to give the dose anyway after the fellow leaves.
And then gets completely shooed out for it by the attending physician, threatened even.
Just for following the data.
Yeah.
For doing what seemed best for the patient.
Yeah. And it really crystallizes this conflict he felt. You have the science, the potential for doing things better, smarter.
And then you have the way things are done, the hierarchy, the resistance. We don't do it that way here.
Exactly. That kind of pushback, that feeling that medicine wasn't always rational, it eventually led him to do something pretty drastic.
He leaves medicine. After 9 years of training, Hopkins residency, the works, goes into management consulting, McKinsey.
Which, yeah, most doctors would probably think is nuts, stepping off that path.
But that detour turned out to be really important for his thinking. He ended up working in credit risk.
Right before the 2008 crash. So his job was basically using data to predict financial disasters for banks.
He talks about telling bank executives they were facing ruin, and his boss compared it to giving a terminal diagnosis. Grim stuff.
But the key thing he learned there was about risk. How finance, even with its issues, tried to quantify it, model it, approach it scientifically.
More scientifically maybe than medicine sometimes does, where it can feel more, gut level or emotional.
That's the sense he got, and it leads him right into questioning that cornerstone of medical ethics. First, do no harm.
The Hippocratic Oath line everyone knows.
Well, sort of. He points out Hippocrates didn't quite say that. It was more like, either help or do not harm. The short version came later.
And the author really doesn't like that modern version. Calls it sanctimonious, unhelpful.
Because, if you take it literally, it suggests doing nothing is always the safest bet, right?
Yeah.
Avoid any immediate downside.
But history shows that's not always true. Think about old treatments like drilling holes in heads or mercury.
Yeah.
They definitely did harm.
Right. But his most compelling argument comes from his own ER experience. The 17-year-old kid, stabbed.
Comes in, seems okay initially, then suddenly gets agitated. They do an ultrasound.
And see fluid building up around the heart, a pericardial tamponade. It's a ticking clock emergency.
No time for the OR. The choice is brutal. Cut his chest open now in the ED, which is risky, causes immediate harm.
Or try to move him knowing he'll likely die before they get there.
The risk is totally lopsided. Doing nothing is almost certain death. Doing something drastic, something harmful in the immediate sense, offers the only chance.
So he does it. Opens the chest, relieves the pressure, saves the kid's life. Turns out it was a tiny nick in an artery. Just needed a couple of stitches once things calmed down.
It's such a stark example. Sometimes the biggest risk is inaction. Every decision, even deciding not to do something, has risks and rewards.
Like deciding not to get a colonoscopy. You avoid the small risk of the procedure, sure, but you take on the bigger later risk of missing cancer. It's always a calculation.
So first, do no harm can actually be dangerous if it paralyzes you from taking necessary calculated risks.
Exactly. It's not about being reckless. It's about weighing the potential help against the potential harm, understanding that sometimes harm is unavoidable to achieve a greater good.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And this thinking informs his view of how medicine has evolved. He breaks it into 3 eras.
Yeah. Medicine 1.0, that's the long stretch. Hippocrates to the mid-1800s. Mostly observation, some guesswork.
Some good ideas, like walking, maybe diet stuff.
Hmm.
But also weird ideas like humors.
Right. Its main achievement was saying disease wasn't, punishment from the gods, but it lacked real science.
Then, Medicine 2.0 kicks in, mid-19th century. This is the scientific revolution hitting medicine.
Germ theory, Pasteur, Lister, Koch. Applying the scientific method, that's the foundation of modern medicine.
But as the source notes, it wasn't an easy switch. People resisted.
Oh, yeah. The story of Semmelweis is heartbreaking. Figures out hand-washing stops childbed fever, gets ridiculed, dies in an asylum. Lister had better luck later with antiseptics, but still, acceptance was slow.
Wow. But once it took hold, Medicine 2.0 achieved amazing things, right?
Absolutely stunning things. Wiping out smallpox, polio, managing HIV, curing Hep C, developing COVID vaccines and treatments incredibly fast. It's been miraculous for acute problems, for infectious diseases.
But there is a but. The author argues Medicine 2.0 isn't nearly as good with chronic diseases. The horsemen, he calls them.
Atherosclerosis, cancer, Alzheimer's, type 2 diabetes, and related metabolic issues. The slow killers.
And he makes this point, referencing some analysis, that a lot of the big lifespan gains came from conquering those infectious diseases early on. If you look at mortality improvements after that, maybe it's not quite as steep for these chronic conditions.
Exactly. Medicine 2.0 is built for finding a specific cause, a germ, an injury, and attacking it, fixing the immediate problem.
But chronic diseases don't work like that, do they? They creep up on you.
Right. They have these long, silent beginnings, decades sometimes. Atherosclerosis builds up for years before a heart attack. Cancer can grow silently.
And Medicine 2.0 tends to jump in late in the game, when the heart attack actually happens or the tumor is found.
Often, yes, it reacts to the crisis. By then, the underlying process has been going on for a very long time, and it might be much harder or impossible to fully reverse.
Okay, so that's the limitation, which leads us naturally to Medicine 3.0.
The proposed new way forward.
So what is it? Is it just about having like robot surgeons and AI doctors?
Well, technology is part of it, for sure. Things like better data collection, AI analysis, personalized approaches are key enablers. He mentions things like continuous glucose monitors as an example.
Ah, right. Instead of just one blood test showing your sugar weeks ago.
You get real-time data showing how your body reacts to this meal, this exercise, right now. Much more personalized.
But he says the tech isn't the main point.
No, he stresses it's mostly a mindset shift first. The technology helps make the mindset practical. He uses that self-driving car analogy.
Right. The idea exists way before the tech could actually do it safely.
Exactly. People dreamed of it in the 50s, but you needed modern sensors, computing power, AI. Medicine 3.0 is like that. The idea of highly personalized preventative care is catching up with the tools needed to actually deliver it.
Okay, so what are the core parts of this new mindset? He lays out 4 main points, right?
Yes. Number 1, a huge emphasis on prevention. Proactive, not reactive.
The Noah's Ark analogy? Don't wait for the flood. Build the ark before the rain starts.
Precisely. Get ahead of the problem. 2, treat the patient as a unique individual, not just an average.
Moving beyond just the results of big clinical trials. Because nobody is perfectly average.
Right. Medicine 2.0 is evidence-based, relying on those averages. Medicine 3.0 aims to be evidence-informed. Use the big studies, yes, but then look closely at your genetics, your lifestyle, your specific situation to tailor the approach.
Makes sense.
What's number 3?
An honest assessment and acceptance of risk, and crucially, the risk of doing nothing.
This goes back to the do no harm thing and the stab victim. Sometimes inaction is the riskiest choice. He used the HRT example here too, didn't he?
Yes, the hormone replacement therapy controversy. The big WHI study came out, reported that scary-sounding 24% relative risk increase for breast cancer.
Which led a lot of doctors and women to just drop HRT completely.
But the author dives into the numbers. That 24% relative risk translated to maybe 1 extra case of breast cancer per 1,000 women per year, a tiny absolute risk increase.
Wow, 1 in 1,000 sounds way less terrifying than 24%. It does. And Medicine 2.0, reacting to the headline relative risk, often missed the nuance. Medicine 3.0 asks, okay, what's the actual risk for this specific woman? What are the benefits she might get, like relief from severe menopause symptoms, maybe reduced risk of heart disease or osteoporosis?
So it's about weighing the real absolute risks against the potential benefits for the individual, not just reacting to a scary percentage from one study on a specific group.
Exactly. It's a much deeper, more personalized risk-benefit calculation. And it also involves questioning the studies themselves, who was in them, were there other factors.
Okay. Individualized, risk-aware. What's the fourth pillar?
Focus on health span, not just lifespan.
Meaning the quality of your years, not just the quantity.
Right. Medicine 2.0 is pretty good at keeping people alive longer, tacking on years at the end. But Medicine 3.0 aims for maintaining high physical and cognitive function vitality for as long as possible. Thriving, not just surviving.
But he points out a big problem here. The healthcare system isn't really set up for that, is it?
Not really. Insurance pays for the pills once you have diabetes, or the surgery after you break your hip. It generally doesn't pay much, if at all, for the nutritionist, the exercise coach, the CGM that might help prevent those things.
So the financial incentives are kind of backward, pushing towards late-stage treatment instead of early prevention and health span?
That's the argument. And ignoring health span, he says, leads to immense suffering and eventually will bankrupt the system anyway.
He uses another powerful analogy to drive this home, the Titanic in the ice field.
Yeah, the idea that our current medical tools often don't let us see far enough ahead. The Titanic ignored warnings, was going too fast, didn't have the tools, the binoculars were locked up to see the iceberg until it was way too late.
Only 500 yards away, not enough time.
And he likens that to how we approach chronic disease. Clinical trials might last 5 years, risk scores predict 10 years out, but the disease develops over decades.
So if you're 40, you need to know your risk for the next 30 or 40 years, not just the next 10.
Yep.
You need that long-range radar.
Exactly. You need tools and a perspective that look way over the horizon to spot those icebergs when there's still plenty of time to change course.
And the doctor's role changes in this picture.
Yes,
Wow.
they become the navigator using these better tools, helping you chart a course through your specific field of risks, understanding the trade-offs.
But the biggest shift, the one that really hits home, is about us, about the patient. Our role changes completely.
Dramatically. In Medicine 2.0, you're often the passive passenger. Something goes wrong, you go to the doctor, they fix it, or try to.
But Medicine 3.0, it demands more from you, doesn't it?
A lot more. It requires you to be informed, medically literate about yourself, to be really clear about what you want your health to look like long term.
To understand risk properly, including the risk of not changing things.
And to be willing to do the work. Change habits, diet, exercise, sleep, stress. The hard stuff, to step outside your comfort zone.
You have to be an active participant, not passive. Confront problems, have skin in the game, make the key decisions.
Because, ultimately, the message is,
in Medicine 3.0, you are the captain of your ship.
that's the core idea. It reframes everything. We've talked about this shift from acute to chronic, average to individual, risk avoidance to risk management, lifespan to health span.
All viewed through this necessary long-term lens.
But that shift in agency from passenger to captain, that's the linchpin. Recognizing you're in charge.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? If you truly see yourself as the captain, how does that change how you look at those potential health icebergs ahead? And maybe more importantly, what does it change about your choices today?
That's the provocative thought to sit with, I think.
Absolutely. And if you're listening and thinking, okay, I get the why, I need to be the captain, but how?
Well, that's exactly where the source goes next. Chapter 3 is called Objective Strategy Tactics.
So it's the playbook, the how-to for applying these Medicine 3.0 ideas.
Seems like it. It sounds like it lays out the practical steps, the tools, the framework to actually put this into action.
Okay, great. We are definitely looking forward to diving into that, moving from the philosophy to the practice.
So join us next time as we explore the strategies and tactics for